Welcome to the February 25th, 2025 regular session of the Board of Education. This is Arthur Ginecco, Vice President of the Board of Education speaking. Thanking for attending in person or through Zoom. Please rise for the pledge. Due notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and each member of the Board of Education as required by law. Tina, will you please take attendance? Present.
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 Present. Present.
We have a motion to accept the agenda for February 25th, 2025 regular session as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None. We'd like to move to our student recognition portion of the meeting. Dr. Sinha?
Thank you, Mr. Necco. So we have our students that won the prize or they received the Leadership Award Prize, and we would like to acknowledge them tonight and welcome them here this evening. And they were awarded the Adelphi University Prize for Leadership, and this award recognizes not only students' commitment to their studies, but also to community service. And I had the opportunity to stop by at the dinner with our students and their parents. And, some of the community service that our students are involved in are so impressive. And my hope for our students is that they will continue to embody community service, not just while they're here in Garden City, but well beyond Garden City, because it is that important. So as I call your names up, please come up. Sarah Finney. Kayla Turney. Nisha Samuel. Daniel Curley. Isabella Fortes. Tina Tu. And Sarah Tusiani Yang.
That was wonderful. Congratulations again. I would like now to ask if there are any reports.
Oh, we have one more item that we'd like
Absolutely.
to share. So we have Miss Amanda Hauser, our coordinator for music and fine arts here this evening, along with some of our students, and they're going to share with you their experience with the trip that they have taken to Disney. Remember last year, I think we had that trip after a long time in our district where our choral group attended. And this year it was our orchestra group. And what was so special about this year's trip was, I think I heard from several of our students and parents really talking about their experience. Not only did they perform at a very large venue with other districts, but there were other very important aspects of this experience that was so helpful, particularly around building some new friendships and working with students, students that they had never really worked with before. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hauser. She'll talk about the trip, and our students will share some additional their experience with you.
Sure. Good evening. I'm excited to share the amazing trip that our high school orchestra students took to Disney World. With 86 students and 9 chaperones, this was an amazing weekend filled with music, camaraderie, and unforgettable memories. Our trip began bright and early. Actually, it was dark and early. It was 3:15 in the morning, and we gathered at Garden City High School, and we departed for JFK. And the students were filled with excitement, and the adults, we were definitely filled with a lot of caffeine. And throughout the trip, we had the opportunity to go to Animal Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Magic Kingdom. The highlight of the trip was, of course, our performance at Disney Springs, which we will show you shortly. And it was so amazing to see so many of our families fly down to support our children. It was a true testament to the strong community that stands behind our program. And so beyond the performance, our students also took part in a Disney Imagination Campus workshop, where they had the special opportunity to work with professional musicians and sound engineers in a Disney recording studio and created a soundtrack for a Disney trailer. And just as impressive as their performance was the sense of teamwork and camaraderie that developed throughout the trip. The orchestra evolved from small clusters of 3 or 4 students into large, dynamic groups of 10 to 15, walking through Disney as a unified ensemble, socially and musically. And to me, that was the most magical part of all. When students form strong social bonds, it profoundly impacts their ability to connect musically. The trust, communication, and a sense of belonging they developed on this trip translates seamlessly into their playing, allowing them to perform with greater cohesion and shared artistic expression. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the incredible chaperones who went above and beyond to ensure a safe and smooth trip. And I have a heartfelt thank you to Mr. Delamonica, Mrs. Frizzetto, Ms. DeMilta, Mrs. Scaller, Dr. Slater, and Mr. Berg. A special thank you to Connor Cohn, our assistant principal at the high school, who not only joined us on the trip, but also played a key role in facilitating logistics. And finally, an enormous thank you to the mastermind behind the trip, Mr. Andrew Albani. I don't know why he's hiding in the back. Come forward. His dedication to our students, his meticulous planning, and his leadership made this experience unforgettable. And so tonight you will hear from 4 of our outstanding musicians, Sarah Tusiani-Yang, Janiyah Price, Philip Corzina, and Lauren Marino, who will share their personal perspectives on the trip. Thank you for your continued support of the arts in Garden City. And now I'd like to welcome Sarah Tusiani-Yang to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a junior and I play the cello in the orchestra. So we performed on the second day of our trip at Disney Springs. Before the performance, we were brought to Disney's Imagination Campus, where we got to tune our instruments and prepare for a performance. The Disney staff was so organized and helpful throughout the whole process. Performing iconic Disney music at Disney World was such a special experience and a memory I'll never forget. The stage was right at Disney Springs, was right in front of a lake. There was a volcano in it, and it was right across from the biggest Disney store in the world. So tons of Disney guests heard our performance who weren't just our usual audience. I saw people recording us who weren't just our friends and family, and they stopped their shopping just to listen to us play. There was even a live audio engineer who mixed our sound on the spot, and we were treated like professional musicians and got a glimpse into what a performance career could look like. Now, Janiyah is going to talk a bit about the workshop.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janiyah, and I'm going to be speaking about the workshop. Under the teaching and conducting of Miss Suzanne, the workshop consisted of a sight reading many new Disney pieces for the first time from a range of different difficulty levels. We got insight on what it's like to be a professional musician, and we also learned different tactics that can help enhance our musical abilities. For one piece in particular, we played The Lion King and got to mix our sound into the background track of the movie clip. Our playing was recorded while we got to use headphones to listen to the movie clip while we played. This was overall a cool experience because it's not something that you can do during an average orchestra class, and it also gave insight to what some people's jobs are like working in the music and performing industry.
Yes. Hi, I'm Philip. I'm a senior. I play bass in the string ensemble, and I'm gonna tell you about the experience from the parks. So the first day we went to Animal Kingdom, and then we had a great time. We went like on all the rides, right? And then we went to Epcot. That was a great time. But the most notable thing was when we went to the Hollywood Studios, and the Garden City Orchestra was able to enter before everybody else, and we were able to go on the Millennium Falcon ride, which is like pretty new. And we got to skip all the lines, we were all there first. And, it was a great time because it was just like 6 people working together to get that ship to safety, So that was fun. One of the kids that was there, it was his first time going there, his first time ever even flying anywhere. So when he walked into the Star Wars area, he was so happy that he started squealing, And then he spent like $80 on some helmet or something. So was that. So like there was some like organized things, like there was a couple of times we'd like check in just so like, everybody was alive, right? And then at the end of the day, we would like stay, we watch fireworks. For the first couple of nights, we all got together and watched the fireworks, but then after that, you didn't really have to go with anyone to watch the fireworks. So that was great. So, and then when you got back to the rooms, there was like time to socialize. There was like a food court at the hotel, well, motel, I guess. And you got to socialize for like an hour. Just you could hang out with whoever you wanted. And then like at night, when you were tucked in, I guess, so to speak. You got to just like hang out. Like there was a TV, you could watch movies. There was like you had to share a bed with somebody. That's not too bad. So it was just a great time overall. Like people that like I would never thought that I would like make friends with. I mean, like I know so much about them that I would never have learned any other way. So like I recommend this like experience so much for any future orchestra classes.
I have a couple of questions about the helmet.
About the helmet.
Was it a Boba Fett helmet or
It was not a Boba Fett
Mandalorian?
helmet. No, it was.
I don't know then if it was
was like
worth the
a-
$80.
It was an X-wing fighter helmet.
Oh, all right, maybe.
Yeah, it had like a visor though. You can like drop down the
Okay,
back.
all right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm a senior and I'm a violinist in the Garden City Orchestra. So as Philip said, and as the teacher said, truly the bonds that we created on this trip were unmatched. As Philip said, people that I wouldn't have thought speaking to at the beginning of the trip ended up kind of being my best friends towards the end. So this year, we actually split our orchestra into two groups. It was concert orchestra, which is mainly for the younger kids, and the string ensemble, which is for the older kids. And on this trip, we really got to mingle with everyone, like everyone. And the freshmen that I never knew, I got to hang out with them. And towards the end of the trip, we were all waiting on the lines together. That was super cool. And even friends that I had from last year's orchestra that aren't in the string ensemble, I got to see them again. So it was really great to reform these bonds and make new friends. So that was extremely cool. And what was also extremely cool was that this experience was so unmatched that no one was on their phones. We were all talking to each other. We really all got to make great friendships and great connections. I remember Philip was really great at heads up on the lines for Pandora, which was about 2 hours long. But it was really great, and you really get to know more about people while on these trips. And nobody even needs to be on their phones because it was just so cool what we were experiencing that we didn't want to waste a second of it. So that was extremely cool. And like Philip said before, the trip was extremely organized, but we also had a lot of freedom. So every night after the fireworks, we'd all go to the food court for a late night snack. And we would all just like talk about our day. We would talk about the performance, the cool workshop that we did. So it was just extremely cool to have that sort of freedom. But also, I want to thank again the chaperones who did such an amazing job, and they really made this trip feel like honestly one of the best experiences of my life, as I say. So I'm really thankful to them, and thank you so much. So we're actually going to show a clip that encompasses all the fun that we had throughout this journey. Thank you.
I'm going to embarrass my son, Mrs. Hauser. So when I found out we were going to be here tonight, I texted my son Aiden, who's a sophomore in college, and he said, "I loved her. She was my favorite teacher through high school." So as parents, he was our only singer. All my other children have my musical ability, but for parents who went through it, we were very thankful that of you being around him. Period. I mean, he just to this day. I don't think any of my other kids know any of their high school teachers other than Aiden, and that's what he said. Those are exact words. So, although he went to Washington D.C., they didn't go to Disney, so he's a little upset with that. But I know the parents here know it, but as a parent who had one child go through it, thank you very much.
I just want to echo that sentiment from the chorus last year. They made the trip, and both of my daughters went, and they had a blast.
I wanted to know, Mr. Albani, how was your experience, taking our students and leading our students in the performance there?
So I'll just say, a trip like this is intimidating when you're thinking about getting 86 students with instruments on a plane at very early in the morning in a very busy airport and taking them down, to another state. It's a lot of mental preparation. Ms. Hauser and I went through every detail of every day. While they seemed like they may have had some freedom, I guarantee you it was very structured. I just want to make sure that's very clear. But you know, that the point was to give them an opportunity and to have an experience that they will never forget. But I will say having such incredible students makes a trip like this that much easier, because I knew that when I told them this is the check-in time, that was the check-in time. They checked in. So things like that made it the easiest trip while we were there, because I knew I could depend on them to do what they needed to do when they needed to do it. So I'm very grateful to my students for also making the trip as successful as it was, because I'm just one person that, can tell them, here's what you need to do, here's when you need to do it, but it's up to them to make sure that that actually happened. And they all did every single time, every single day. So I couldn't be more proud of them. So thank you.
Should see if we can get a clip and then put it on like GC Trojan Nation or something.
Oh, the clip.
Yeah,
there,
is there, like a clip of you guys, like a good clip from you guys were playing up on that stage?
Yes.
I think we should do
Yeah.
that.
And we can also
Everyone
give
should
it
see
to Amelia. You can also post it on our website as well. That'll be nice. One thing that Ms. Hauser was sharing with me after they came back from the trip is that music piece, because the students didn't see the film that we saw with the music. They were just creating the music. I thought it was that to me was like, when the students saw the piece, I'm sure that must have been amazing.
Right, so they what they were playing. They just were playing, and she was offering feedback and giving them, her experience and how to make the piece better. But they thought they were playing Disney music and learning how to be a better ensemble. And then in the back, they had the audio engineers cutting and putting it all together. And then it wasn't until the very end when they put it with that trailer that they realized they made this incredible soundtrack. It was really cool.
Yeah, that I thought was very, very impressive. Can we put that up on our website, that piece, or we can't?
That is where
We
the
can't.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So I have to, like I said before, I think our music program, and thank you, Ms. Hauser, for leading our department, and Mr. Albani, you guys are amazing, amazing. And there's a lot of heart in this program that we have. And I think it speaks to the number of students that are, I think at the high school, we have to split now because there's so many students in our orchestra. We're getting bigger and bigger, but that's a great problem to have, right? It's a great problem to have because we have students interested, and it's really thanks to all of you. And you guys did a great job. Thank you. Thank you. Amelia will get, yeah. Go ahead. Thank you again. As we were talking about music, I just also want to talk about our fifth grade musicals at both Stewart and at Stratford. Amazing, amazing. It was like Broadway.
Yes.
With Moana Jr. and we also had Annie Jr. Unbelievable. It was phenomenal, both. And then we have our high school musical coming up mid-March. So 13th, 14th, and 15th. That'll be another exciting, again, showcasing the talent in our schools.
Also, we will, I was discussing with Dr. Sinha, and we will place the performance that was shared here tonight. That will be on the website, along with Trustee Gaffney's wonderful idea about Trojan Nation. Okay. All right. The report section, I would like to now ask if there are any reports for the Board of Education. Dana? Dana, will you please provide the treasurer's report?
Certainly. Hi, this is the treasurer's report for December 2024. We had a cash balance at the beginning of the month of 84,272,710. We had receipts in December totaling 1,173,955. We had disbursements of 13,487,423, leaving us with a closing balance of 71,959,242. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sinha, could you please provide the report for the superintendent of schools?
Sure, thank you. I also want to first of all we have many of our colleagues here from our middle school. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see faces that I don't get to see very often. So thank you for being here. There we go. All right, so I have a few things to share. We have our valedictorian and salutatorian. We're happy to announce this year's valedictorian is Jeffrey Lee and salutatorian is Hunter McGuire. And we're very proud they'll be here. And we will be inviting them next month, so at the board meeting, so we can really honor their remarkable achievements. I think you'll be blown away by what they have accomplished at their time here in our high school. And in fact, I shouldn't just say high school, K through 12. And some additional student news, both Amy Zhao and Simone Astacher were selected to apply for the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. We're proud of both of them, and we look forward to seeing as they follow through with their application process. And Audrey Pressoir has been invited to attend the All Eastern Conference in Hartford, Connecticut, and only the most musically talented high school students in the eastern region of the United States are selected to perform. It's actually a very, very high achievement for this, for Audrey, and we're, again, very, very proud of her achievement, and we look forward to see her. I don't know if she's been in our performances at the high school in the past. We look forward to seeing her perform more for us. Today was actually one of the best events that we hold in our school, Hoops for Hope. It is unbelievable how our school community comes together for this one event. And I think, seeing our young students, our older students, our staff members, and our families, it's an incredible event that Catherine O'Hanlon, you may recall her siblings have coordinated this in the past. She did a remarkable job, coordinating this for today. And this annual event celebrates our Challenger basketball players and also raises funds for the I Am Not Done Yet Foundation. And the foundation was created in honor of Bobby Menges, a high school student who lost to pediatric cancer. So we are very fortunate that we have this every year after year, and we actually keep the student, our high school student, in our thoughts every single year. So it's a nice event. We also, on March 9th, we have 30 students from across our district who will be exhibiting their artwork at the 21st Annual All-County Art Exhibition. And there will be a special ceremony that morning to recognize a Senior Scholar Artist Award recipient, Caitlin Cook, for winning this honor. And we want to congratulate Caitlin and the other 29 participants. So congratulations, Caitlin. I also wanted to mention that we had our winter enrichment program through SCOPE that Mr. Dan Side, really under his direction. He does an amazing job with running all of these programs, whether it's the enrichment program, the summer program, and it gets better and better every year. This was the first time we offered this program at this time of the year. And again, we had 120 students that were enrolled in the morning session and 60 in the afternoon, a variety of learning experiences for our students. And then with our athletics, many of our student athletes will be competing in the New York State Championships from swimming and diving, boys and girls track and field, wrestling. And we also have the upcoming boys and girls basketball teams. They'll be competing next week. And I hope everybody follows Trojan Nation. It's all on there. and it'll be on our website as well, the schedule. Agenda items, we have several, on just some highlights. We're appointing, there's some positions there that we're appointing, bus drivers, a leave replacement. We also have consultant agreements for our musical at the high school and for NYSSMA. The budget notice, that's also on the agenda, as well as some transportation contracts. And let's see. Tomorrow night is our elementary literacy and mathematics family fun night that will be held at Stratford from 5 to 6. So we want to ask, we hope that our Stewart and Stratford families join us for that. And Ms. Kaufman and Ms. Cardella, along with many other people who've been involved. And I looked at the offerings. It's a wonderful opportunity for our parents to participate in and learn and see what their children are engaged in our schools. And then what I said earlier, we have the high school musical coming up.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other reports from the administration this evening?
One more. If Dr. Bowman, if you could report on the UPK.
So we sent out the responses, the offers of the seats to all of the families based on the results of the lottery, and ask that people either accept or decline, or ask to be put on the wait list if they preferred a different location from the location that was offered to them. That Google form closes tomorrow. Once the Google form closes, what we will do is we will see if there are, in fact, any seats that are open as a result of having given families the opportunity to accept or decline or to defer to the wait list. From that point, we will start with the wait list. Originally, we had, I think there were 4 families or 10 families, apologies, who were on the wait list. And so those 10 families will be the first to be offered any vacant spots that opened up from declinations. And then families who declined but asked to be put on the wait list based on the time stamp of when they responded to the Google form asking to be put on the wait list, we will offer spots to them as well. We anticipate hosting almost a full house, if not a full house. We have 174 slots open. We had 184 students who were interested in being there. And so we're excited about that. I was actually at Harbor this morning looking around, and the children told me they were very excited because even though it's winter, it feels like spring and they were going to be able to go outside. And you can see already the evidence of all of the learning that's gone on. We were there in time to see one of the classes do the Pledge of Allegiance, and they know it. They were so fast. And it was a really good experience. And so our kids are getting prepared for kindergarten. And we are getting ready for our next group of UPK students for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bowman. Are there any reports from members of the board?
Yes, I have a legislative report. It's tough to follow all the performances and all the honors with the legislative report, but this will be as exciting as possible. So the first thing is about zero emission buses. So New York State has mandated that all school districts get 2 electric buses, and they've given us a deadline of 2027, I believe. And obviously that is a challenge to move over the fleet of buses, and we're in the same boat as all the other districts. So we have been meeting and discussing with our legislatures about legislative representatives about ways to work with the state to push that deadline back. And maybe have like a slower rollout and not have just such a quick deadline, because the logistics and the cost really of moving over all of the buses to electric would be quite formidable. The other piece that the legislative committee discussed was a priority of ours is getting voting out of our schools, because obviously some schools of ours are better situated than others to handle the influx of voting. And so ultimately we would like to be able to move voting out of our schools. And so we have also been addressing that with our representatives. And another topic that we discussed is we just met on Monday, and so we've been discussing the recent executive orders and then the orders and the guidance coming down from the Department of Education that is coming down from President Trump's executive orders, and just the different how, it's very much in flux, and we will be monitoring what the situation is to ensure that we are in compliance.
Thank you, trustee Gaffney. Actually, I'd like to share something as well, just regarding CASDA. We discussed last meeting how CASDA was approached. The selection process by which CASDA was selected followed the same stringent process that we followed for foreign language and mathematics. The approval for CASDA is set for 2/27, which is in 2 days, and they will begin working the next day. At this point, public documents such as public meetings, curricular information is posted on the website, have been shared with them, and as soon as CASDA is approved, some information such as, but not limited to, will be shared as item skills analysis on prior and current state exams, including extended response, the writing portion, multiple choice and their corresponding standards, subgroup breakdown, classroom data, NWE data, observation and staff evaluations, and access to our Google Drive. Last week, Dr. Sinha, President Cilio, and I met with the executive director for some time. We reiterated the importance of their evaluation not being a rubber stamp. This will be a full review from top to bottom. We are concerned with an interdisciplinary approach, and we want all areas that embrace the literacy lens truly evaluated. Vertical, horizontal, and whole school studies will be conducted. Staff, students, families, and the community overall will be asked for their input on the process. Please watch for that information. We also stress the importance of including the literacy committee in everything that is transpiring. And I think ultimately, and probably the most important point, is as a reminder, there is a deep scope of all of this work on our website. In fact, there will be a page dedicated specifically for the CASDA review. And at this time, I would like to go back to Dr. Sinha and Ms. excuse me, and Dana, to please go ahead with the budget preview.
Okay. I'll just wait till it comes up, but as I'll start with this is our first four additional work session, one of four actually, work session Board of Education meetings that is really to go over our budget and different aspects of the budget. And then it will be followed by adoption of the budget hearing, and then the vote in May 21st. So, before I get started in talking about the budget, what I wanted to share was our budget process, and, we have the budget vote in May. We really start discussing budget again over the summer. And we start that because we start the planning process. The budget process never really ends. You end one, you start one. And it gets pretty significant, probably around, I would say, mid-fall, starting of fall to just about now, where we are sharing this proposed budget. Numerous meetings are held, and I would like to thank our principals, assistant principals, directors, and our coordinators, all of our administrators, our faculty and staff who are involved in this process, and of course, my colleagues here, Ms. McLaughlin, Dr. Bowman, and of course, Mr. Capua for their hard work on this budget. And so with that, let's see where my clicker is here. Here we go. Okay. And what I do want to say this is that this budget really focuses on the academic excellence that we have in our district while ensuring that we're fiscally being responsible with our proposed budget. We always start with our mission and vision statement. Our mission statement has been here for many years. I think it's maybe even close to 20, if not longer. And this mission statement was strong then, and it is strong today. And we really, our goal is, again, what it states here, and responsibility is to help each student develop an enthusiasm for learning, a respect for self and others, and the skills to become a creative, independent thinker and problem solver. And our vision for teaching and learning is to inspire and challenge our students to accomplish their personal best. And our hope is that when our children leave our district, that they are curious for learning throughout, well beyond, their time here in Garden City. So some things we'll be discussing with you. Obviously, we'll be giving you what our budget proposal is, what it looks like, overview of at the state level, and then also what it looks like for Garden City. Some information about our districts, our priorities, how we construct the budget. And, Mr. Capia will go over the tax cap calculation, the revenue and reserves. So our total proposed budget is $137,410,845 with a tax cap levy of 2.42%. That's within the allowable limit. And again, what I said earlier is our goal is that to ensure that this budget, again, it has high quality education. We take care of our facilities, that we have the proper resources while being, again, fiscally responsible to our community. And it's taking a look at how do we balance between some of the challenges that we have and what we offer. And again, prioritizing resources for our students, academic success, safety, and the operational efficiencies, which is our buildings with school buildings that we have here. So here's the big picture about the state budget. And this is again at a very high level for New York State, the governor's proposal. You can see here that, the state budget that the governor proposed is close to $1.7 billion, which is a 4.8% increase in total school aid. And the increase, if you take the UPK out, it's $1.55 billion or 4.5% increase. Of that, this is really important because the foundation aid is the largest aid that we get in our districts. It's very important for us what that number is. So for at the state level, of that is $1.46 billion or 5.9% increase from last year to this year is in foundation aid. So all districts, they're guaranteed either the formula, the foundation aid has a formula. And if that formula isn't advantageous to the district, then what you have is this, remember the hold harmless from last year, that was something that the governor was saying that might be eliminated. It wasn't eliminated, and we fell in that category. So there's a 2% increase, but it's important for us to think about that, because if that wasn't, we didn't get that, it would impact us by it's $1.5 million. And I think Mr. Capia had included that in the memo to the board around the foundation aid. And again, she'll go through it more specifically as it relates to Garden City. And then the other items that I think would be interesting for our community and our board was the governor included. Remember last year that there was the Rockefeller Institute. They did a study on the foundation aid. And there was a lot of, that was in the press, and there were several webinars around that. There were two recommendations that the governor did include in her budget, which is the poverty estimate and the free and reduced lunch. And there's a formula that they use to calculate that. And that is part of the calculation of the other aids for the state. And then the two other items that she has included in the budget is a state mandate on distraction-free learning, which means this is around the cell phone during the day. And if this did go into effect, it would be starting August of this year. Okay. And the other one is the universal free meals. So if you recall, right after COVID, that year where we had the free meals, it didn't matter whether you qualified or not, but you had access to those free meals at that time. But this, again, we have to follow this and see, because that would have an impact on us as well, and the funding for that. So this gives you a little bit of a snapshot about our district. Our enrollment right now is 3,935 students in district. We have about 26 students out of district. These are really the special needs students that are placed in different schools. And 107 UPK students, which is really nice because we started out with 40, then 36, and now we're up to 107, and hopefully we'll have all of our students enroll in our UPK program. We're excited to have that. And if you recall last year, there was a lot of work done with the grant. Thank you to Ms. McLaughlin. We put a lot of time into that, getting the grant, and we're fortunate to have that. And in terms of our employees, we have close to 690 full-time employees, and a total of 900 employees, which are part-time and substitute teachers or casual employees. And in our schools, we have 7 school buildings, an administration building, and a bus garage. We're also fortunate, we have our own fleet of transportation, our buses, and we also have contract buses. We have 2 cafeterias at the 2 secondary buildings and our lunch and milk program. And you know, what's wonderful with our fiscal management, the AAA bond rating, we're one of very few districts that have that in New York State. And we've had that for the past several years. And in terms of our priorities, our priorities have remained pretty much the same. And, you know, every year after year, and it's really around, you know, what's good for our students, that we really prioritize, you know, the whole child, their learning, their social emotional learning. We want to make sure that their well-being is at the heart of what we do. Our space, we look at how we're utilizing our facilities and making sure it's effective for learning and activities. We've created a lot of those spaces within our buildings. The future ready of schools, this is an area with technology. We've invested quite a bit. And if you recall, the last few years, especially around cybersecurity, there has been a lot of investment in our, you know, through our budget. And then facilities, our facilities, it's like a home. All 9 of our buildings, you have to take care of it and ensure that it is, again, energy efficient, that it's safe. You know, one of the things I do want to mention, we have put a lot in our district year after year around safety. And right now, all of our buildings, we have a security or safety personnel in each of our buildings. We also have put, you know, lots of cameras, internal and external. Even this summer, we did quite a bit of work in that area. We have we have now security personnel that starts at the high school at 4 o'clock, and then, you know, is to support the high school. We're in the process of getting a weekend personnel. So we've invested, and we continue to invest in areas that are, you know, some years it's more in one area than the other, but all of these aspects we look at when we prioritize for the budget. This that you see here, this is what encompasses our budget, from our contracts to our mandates to, any type of requirements that we may have, our local assessed values. So there's a lot. And so imagine when the budget is being developed, this has to be kept in mind at all times. Okay. And with that, as you're keeping that in mind, as we start developing the budget, we're analyzing what we have done this year and what are we going to carry over into the next year. And you know, this again requires, we have meetings upon meetings to review our current program, see where there's some efficiencies. We would look at electives, we would look at enrollment, any new mandates that have come up. We also look at, if we're looking at programming for new programs for the following school year, we not only look at staffing, but we look at what materials will we need, what are the costs for long haul. So we are constantly going through that process. And then the second part of the budget is the revenue, which Dana will go over in a little bit. But it's a matter of taking what our expenses are and what we get in terms of revenue and really balancing the budget. And that takes quite a bit of time, because if you're reducing anything, you want to make sure you're not reducing anything that touches our children. So this process is, I think that till the last minute, it's being worked on over and over again to ensure that we propose a budget that again is fiscally responsible, but a balanced budget. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Capua. Oh, wait, let me go over this before I turn it over to you. So our proposed budget for next year, again, it's $137,410,845. It's a budget to budget increase of 2.56% or a little over $3.4 million. And again, our tax cap is within the limit, which is about 2.42%.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dana DeCapua, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. The rest of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about the property tax cap and then through the revenue side of the budget. So this is just a visual display of our tax cap calculation. We talk about that it's an 8-step formula. It's a little complicated because so many factors go into it, including CPI, a growth factor, which is individualized for each district, allowable exclusions, and so on. But that is the formula as it's published by the state, and we include it in there just to give a view of that. This is the tax cap levy of how it was impacted for Garden City itself. So these are the specific items that make up the changes for Garden City. And starting at the top of the formula, it starts with the current year's tax levy, and that is multiplied times a tax-based growth factor. For us this year, it was that 0.0077. That's an amount that's given to us from the Nassau County Assessor's Office. It's different for each district. So just because your neighboring district has one, it's just different for each set. It talks about this is relative to the brick and mortar construction, the changes, the enhancements that are being done within the district of Garden City. So this is what that is supposed to be considered. It's an evaluation that's done by the assessor's office and it changes annually. We all wait on pins and needles. It came on a little bit on the early side this year, which was nice as we were working through the cap. So once you get to that number, the next thing we do is add in the last year's pilots. And then we go on to talk, and then we take out the prior year's capital exclusions. Working our way down, we then multiply it times CPI. So CPI is capped at 2%. So it's the CPI or 2%, whichever is lower. For us this year, because CPI was about 2.9, we are at 2, and that represents a 2.2 million of an increase on the cap. And that's really where we see the biggest increase. The next step in the cap after we've done that is we subtract out the current year's pilots. So what we're talking about there is the difference between the current last year's pilot and this year's pilot. That was a deduct because we're projecting our pilots to go up. So it's a deduct to the cap, and that was net of a negative 313,000. We have 4 pilots in Garden City. Some districts have none. Some have much more than we do. We have 4. Our largest one is LIPA. It sits at about $4 million. So that's the one that does change each year. There's a lot in law, and the confusion with the LIPA pilot has to do with the fact that the agreement in law with LIPA is that their pilot operates on an annual basis, January to December, whereas our county bills on a fiscal basis. And that's why the billing changes each year. We had a very big difference this year because of the way of the billing, and that's just something we need to work through with it. But LIPA is the gift that keeps giving for us on that end. The last step is that we do, after that's done, we do add in the current year's capital levy. So that's all of our debt service and now all of our intended capital expenses. It includes capital expenses on the transportation side as well, net of state aid. So that's the number. It's quite similar to what it was last year. You can see it was slightly higher, which is a negative to the cap of 77,000. So all of those factors equal the allowable increase of 2.7 million or the 2.42. Here we just show, it's just a good picture of what CPI has been. I think this is probably 10 or 12 years of it. You can see there is that even in years where CPI can be as high as 4.7 or 8%, we're still capped at the 2%. But if it's under 2, it gets, the CPI increases for the tax cap formula is at that amount. That's where it's capped. So this is the 2% tax cap that when it was introduced, a lot of people think it's a straight 2%, but it's really just one place in the levy calculation that comes into play. So as Dr. Sin has started to talk about is that we spend the majority of our time with all of our conversations and administrators and central office, and we meet with everyone and we're going through mostly is the expense budget. But at the same time, I'm working on the revenue side because the revenue and the expense budgets have to match. So we have to present a revenue budget for budgeting purposes that would match the expenses. And that's where comes the just the going back and forth to that. If there's a gap between revenue and expenses, we have to work on it at that point. So this is just an overview of where our revenues are. This is the major categories. So you have state aid and local sources. Our largest category is going to be in property taxes because we aren't eligible for a lot of aid, but you'll see that as we go through. So these become a little bit of an eye chart, but I'll walk through them. But you can see that these are the same major categories, and the total equals the 137,410,000 that Dr. Sin had talked about. The increase on the budgets is the 3.4 million or 2.56%. I will talk a little bit about state aid here, which is that although we did see an increase in the foundation aid, which is that top formula, so our total aid is about 10.6 million projected for next year. It's down about 168,000 from the current year. And I want to point that out because when these things get published, first of all, they have UPK aid that's included in the numbers that are published from the state, but those are not accounted for in general fund. That's all done out of the special aid fund, and it has nothing to do with general fund. Both the expenses and the revenue are budgeted in the fund, how we get grants. So that's why you would not see that in this conversation. So these are the aids that come towards general fund. A little more than half of that comes from foundation aid. And while we did see the increase in the 2% minimum to the hold harmless, we did also see at the same time decreases in building, transportation, and BOCES aid, specifically tied to those wealth factors that go into those aids. So as the district appears more wealthy as compared to the state, your state aid factors will be reduced, and we saw decreases for building, transportation, and BOCES. Special education, those formulas are where they are and not expected to change. So you can see that number is relatively flat. And the textbook, computers, library, and hardware are tied to a specific dollar amount per student. Those are numbers driven from your enrollment, nothing else. And that's why those are also relatively flat. So it's really the foundation aid and those building, transportation, and BOCES where we get reimbursement for expenses. So those are expense-driven aids. The others are more enrollment-driven aids. So just to make that point. So the overall decrease from year to year in state aid is about 168,000. The next portion of it is local sources. So this is where you see stuff like continuing ed fees and other things. Really, the biggest increases here are in health services and tuitions. What that represents is that the school district is responsible to provide both health services and special education services to the private schools that are within our boundaries. So you have St. Joe's, St. Anne's, and Waldorf. That is the money that we charge back to other districts for getting those services. So they do come with expenses. we charge back really, we itemize those, and the dollar per dollar is what we charge back to those districts. And that's what's represented there. Those numbers have been increasing, so we did increase those projections to follow what we're seeing in the actuals. So we have both health services and tuition services, but the tuitions really represent those special ed services. Those fall under that other category in there. Interest, charges for facilities, rentals, all of those are just in line with what we anticipate getting, and we are projecting a little bit higher in miscellaneous. The last items here are on of our revenues are on some property-related tax expenses or projections, as well as reserves. You could see there that we are appropriating a little bit more out of our ERS reserve. We do have to be careful with that over years, but the budget as it's been operating can certainly handle that, and that's so that to offset any tax levy implications. Plus, you'll see that there's an interfund transfer for capital fund. That will show up in the fund balance allocation when it comes down to the accounting of it. This current school year, we received money back from a grant project that we did through E-rate. We got back about $100,000, and that's for some technology programs or projects that qualify for E-rate. So those that are, Wi-Fi or expansions and that such qualify for that kind of reimbursement. We got that back this year, and we will be allocating. You'll see when we talk about capital expenditures, that same $100,000 will go towards a future technology project. So they look to do these because they know we'll budget back out for them, and they're always working on their infrastructure. At the bottom, all of those total that I just went to in detail, total the $137,410,845, which will follow through on the expense side as we go through there. And I am going to hand it back to Dr. Sinha.
Thank you, Mr. Capua. So on the ballot, there will be two propositions. One is the school district budget and election of 2 Board of Education trustees. And our calendar, today was our first session. Next one will be on March 11th, and that'll focus on all non-instructional, administrative, and capital components, followed by instructional component or part 1, which will be on March 25th. This is where you'll hear from our building principals about the budget in terms of the bill at the building level. And part 2 will be on April 8th. That is we have special education, technology, and athletics on that day, along with staffing we discuss, and then followed by the adoption of the budget, April 23rd, budget hearing on May 13th, and then the budget vote and election on the 20th. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sinha, and thank you for all of the work, Mr. Capua, that you put into the presentation. Next on the agenda is the question and comments portion of the meeting. First, are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. Recently, we have noticed a number of questions that were posed in past weeks that were similar to nature. So to make better use of the community's time, we will listen to all of the questions and then address them as best as possible. Next is the citizens' questions or comments. At this time period designated for public to address the board on action items on the agenda or topics concerning the school district. Questions or comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. A maximum of 30 minutes will be set aside for public comment. This will allow the board to complete the agenda, which often has personnel or time-sensitive matters. Please come up to the microphone and state your name and address if you have any questions or comments.
Hi, Sivan Chapman, 70 Willow. Not to take away from the budget, but I wanted to go back to the music stuff. I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, my son did the chorus trip with your daughters last year. Absolutely loved it. I think it was 98 girls, 4 boys. Really loved it.
Sure.
They lost his luggage, but he didn't complain. So they had a blast. I think it taught the kids so much. I don't think that anybody should think like, they had a blast, they had so much fun, but they worked so hard. They really, really, wanted to make sure they represent Garden City and do it right. And my daughter, hopefully, for all of our sake, will go next year with the band. So, I also wanted to say, last week I got to visit SEPTA as a representative of SEPTA and as a parent, Stratford, and I got to see and I got to see the program for the music, the integrated musical therapy. I've never seen something so incredible in my life. I'm begging you guys to please make sure it's in the budget. His Friends of Music and SEPTA both gave 8 weeks each. It was unreal. Please go visit it. It was incredible to see the Janet kids with the 812 kids. Amazing. My daughter had the time of her life. Please go see it. Please make sure it goes into the other schools and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to make more efficient use of meeting time, the Board of Education authorized. Sure, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Robert Hers. I would like to bring up the issue which I've discussed in the past about the OPEB liability for the district. Most of this relates to post-employment health care that is provided to employees. The current liability is $248 million. That's 17 times what our bonded debt is. Our bonded debt is $14 million at the end of last June, and the residents of the village get to vote on the bonded debt whenever there's a debt that's being issued. However, there's no voting for other post-employment benefits. Now, in my opinion, this benefit needs to be contained, and I think it would be important at some point for the board to discuss this. I have never heard this topic other than when I bring it up at any of these meetings. And I did find it rather noteworthy that in the latest financial statements, it's mentioned in the financial highlights section. Before that, it's never been mentioned, and these exact amounts are spelled out in there. I think it's on page 4. Now, I've mentioned in the past at some of these meetings that some other public entities have been working to contain this liability. For example, over a year ago, Nassau County changed the vesting requirements for the Civil Service Employees Union. That's their largest union. And that's also a rather large union for the school district. It's not governed by the same work unit as Nassau County. And they extended the requirement from 10 years of requirement to work to get healthcare and retirement to 20 years. The district's requirement is currently 10 years for everyone except an administrator. For an administrator, it's 5 years. And, so I think that some of those things need to be addressed. And also one school district in Suffolk County started to restrict benefits to 10 years in retirement. So when you're fully vested, you only get 10 years of healthcare and retirement instead of for an employee that retires from Garden City. If they retire at 55, their life expectancy is 25 years based on the Social Security tables. So they work for 10 years and they get 25 years of retirement. I think most people would feel that that's an unequal bargain between the school district and the employees. And if you think about the private sector, this benefit was largely eliminated 30 years ago when the accounting rules changed, when this benefit needed to be booked on the balance sheet. This thing did not change for the public sector until about 7 years ago, but nothing has really changed yet for most plans. And 80% of the population works for private companies. They do not work for the public sector. So I encourage you to, work on that. I had one other question that relates to this, and it has to do with the ongoing healthcare costs for the district. They're 16.5% of the budgeted expenditures for the fiscal year that will end this June. And they've grown at 47% over the last 5 years. That will be through this June, which is 8% per year, which is a rather unsustainable rate. And there are many options that can be examined to work on this. And I don't know if you have an answer to this now, but perhaps if you don't, you can answer me in the future. For the new year, health costs are estimated to decline by 2% in your budget, which is well below the historical trend rate. And most of the estimates that I've seen for healthcare trend is about 7% a year. So that trend is rather divergent. I don't know the last time it's dropped in the district. I have not seen it drop in the financial statements that I've looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving to the consent agenda portion. To make more efficient use of meeting time, the Board of Education authorizes the use of consent agenda as part of the meeting agenda. A consent agenda allows for one motion to approve multiple items, excuse me, and such items are identified as such on the agenda. The President of the Board will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda and will ask the board members if the board members wish to have discussion and/or clarification on specific items contained within the consent agenda. Following the discussion, the board will then vote on the consent agenda motion. In addition, a board member may request to have an item removed from the consent agenda in order to vote on the motion separately. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes business of the board items I1 through I2, personnel matters J1 through J5, business office matters K1 through K14, special education matters items L1 through L2.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is new business. Any new business from the board? Thank you. Any new business from the administration?
Yes, there's one item that we didn't mention in the earlier report, and Dr. Bowman, if you can give, because I know we made some changes with the testing dates, if we can give that information, please.
In reviewing the calendar of our upcoming 3 to 8 assessment dates, we realized the window for computer-based testing opens on April 7th and closes on May 16th. In order to provide our students and teachers with the most amount of instructional time, we have decided that we are going to change those dates for the administration that are in the printed calendar for this year. So for our grades 3 through 5, for the ELA assessments, we will be administering on April 29th and 30th. Originally, they were scheduled for April 9th and 10th, so that gives us 7 more days of instruction. For grades 6 to 8, we will be moving to May 5th and 6th. Originally, we had those dates April 7th and 8th, so that gives us 11 more days of instructional time for our students and teachers prior to those administrations.
Thank you. We'll update our the digital camera calendar on our website.
Thank you. Is that, Dr. Sinha, that's the only way that we're going to notify families, or?
No, they will also be receiving a letter from their buildings.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Any other business from the admin? Wonderful. Finally, announcements. Future Board of Education meetings on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Board of Education Public Work Session and Special Session will begin at 8:15 p.m. here at the high school. The next meeting, Tuesday, March 25th, 2024, the Board of Education regular session will take place at 8:15 here at the high school as well. May I have a motion that being no further business is to come before the board, that the meeting be adjourned?
So moved.
All in favor?